Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Long Way Around podcast. I'm Kevin Sullivan alongside my host of our wonderful show here, Tony Jackson. Tony, say hello to everyone really quickly.
Hello, everyone, really quickly.
Appreciate that. And we have a very exciting episode coming up for you today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at how did we start living independently. Tony and I both live in apartments with caregivers who come in and out. So we have a very exciting discussion here for you all today. So we're going to get this started by taking a look at, the most important part of living independently, finding somewhere to live. And finding somewhere that's accessible and affordable can certainly be a challenge, especially in our current economy. And I would say it also depends on geography as well. It can be, if you're in an older city, it might be harder to find something that is accessible and also fits your budget. If you're in more of a newer city, it might be easier to find that inventory. So Tony, I'd love to hear from you what your experience has been like finding some accessible and affordable living options over the years.
So I want to say this, first of all. You and I cheated. You and I cheated at this, okay? Because you and I both went to college, right? And when you go to school at a university, an esteemed, prestigious learning institution like Arizona State University, and where did you go to school? Illinois State?
Illinois State,
Two
yeah,
academic
the Harvard of the Midwest.
Powerhouses of academia, right? You live on campus. And so I actually left my parents' nest at 17 because I was smarter than all of the other kids or something like that, and graduated high school at 17. And I went to college. I didn't even need to look for a place. A place was already given to me. They just asked me, which dorm do you want to live in? Or, sorry, everybody, residence hall, whatever. Whatever. So I just had to kind of pick where I wanted to live. I told them I needed something that's wheelchair accessible. So I had it made. I went to school at Arizona State. My dorm, residence hall, whatever. Get off my back about it. All right, leave me alone. My dorm room had a roll-in shower. It had an automatic door opener so I could get in and out of my place when I wanted to. And so it was easy for me to transition from my home to another place to live, just in terms of finding a place to live. And then there was the whole thing about getting caregivers. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But in terms of just leaving my home and going to another place to live on my own, that was easy. All I had to do was fill out a college application, fill out a financial aid request form, and then go thousands and thousands of dollars into debt. It was very easy. So, and I'm assuming your situation was very similar coming out of high school.
Yeah, it was. It was actually almost the exact same.
Same.
I went to Illinois State down in central Illinois. Same thing. I applied. I got in, got the financial aid and all of that. And that was my first experience living alone. And I would say that, and I'm sure you would agree, that living in a dorm compared to living in an apartment is so different. Mainly from the aspect of there's just so much less to maintain and clean.
Oh yeah,
and so many less chores to handle.
I don't do any chores because I can't. So there,
right? Yeah, exactly. Same here. But someone has to do it.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, so we do have to account for that. I know, when I was in college, it's so much easier in certain respects because like your food is prepared, especially if you live in a dorm or a residence hall.
Yeah.
And you just go there, you get your food, and then you put your stuff on a thing, and they clean it up for you, and you leave.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
It's really so nice. If there was anything I could change about the real world and like living independently now, yes, there should be more residence hall cafeterias.
I wish my apartment complex had a cafeteria.
Yes,
right?
exactly. I would willingly pay more rent for that.
I would pay way more rent for that. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
I
1000%.
paid $7 for a dozen eggs not that long ago,
Oh my
right? I mean,
God.
I would happily pay more for all the eggs you could eat in a cafeteria.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so it's we cheated, right? We didn't have to go out and find an apartment, right? And food was already available to us because we had meal plans, right? Living on campus is utopia compared to living in the fiery hellscape that is the real world.
That's so true. And it's so much easier finding caregivers too
Oh
in
yeah,
college.
because in college people will work for almost nothing.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. They just want beer money.
yeah, they want beer money, they want pizza money, right? Like you want to, maybe you need to pay for your, your PlayStation Online subscription or whatever, right? I mean, it's so much easier. People outside of college in the real world want bill money. They need rent money, right? It's so much easier doing it so my suggestion to you, contrary to what I say to most other people, if you have a disability, go to college, right? It's so much easier. It's so much easier.
Yeah.
Living independently on campus for me was interesting because it's the first time in my life that I was living away from my family. I had broken away from the cult, right? And so I had somebody else taking care of me, right? Even though I will say, so when I was at ASU, Arizona State University, when I was at ASU for like the first 3 or 4 nights, my dad stayed in town with me to help me transition into living on my own, which helped. We found a caregiver. It was a guy. I'd never had a guy outside of my dad, and maybe my brother every once in a while taking care of me. It was fine. He was an interesting dude. I still maintain contact with him to a certain extent to this day. It was a fascinating time because I'd never been away from home. I'd never done anything like that. So I had to adjust to somebody I didn't know, right? And I had to explain to somebody how to care for me when I had no idea what the hell I was doing. My parents and my brother just did it. I didn't have to explain anything. And so I had to learn how to do that. And I was terrible at it. Um, there's a huge learning curve especially when you have a disability, when you go from being a sheltered high schooler to now a semi-independent college student.
Mhm.
Right. Kevin, you have similar stories, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Agreed. So I took a slightly different approach. I hired several caregivers going into my freshman year at ISU, and I also,
Fancy.
had the benefit of being able to post the job online. I'm not sure. Were you able to?
Online.
Yeah.
Online. We didn't even have cell phones when I went to college.
That's
I had an answering machine with a little tiny cassette tape on this table in my college. Hey, this is Tony. I'm not home right now to answer the phone, but leave me a message and I'll call you back.
wow. That's amazing.
We
So
had,
how
we had
did you? So
whiteboards on our dorm room doors with markers. Whiteboards.
we had those too, actually, even when I went. So I have to ask honestly, how did you go about hiring your caregivers since you couldn't really post online at that time?
Telegrams.
Telegrams.
Singing telegrams. I don't even honestly. I had the same guy for like 7 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, dude just showed up every day, right? Every day. Dude was a workhorse. I just had the same person. I was actually really fortunate in that way for a long time where I had the same caregiver 7 days a week for years. And then once he left, I had found a few caregivers and they were in and out. And then I had another caregiver every day for like 6 or 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, these people are machines. So
That's impressive.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm surprised they're not dead. Honestly, surprised. Yeah. So I didn't have multiple caregivers. Um,
Yeah. So I think it was kind of a byproduct of being more in like the internet era. I feel like people, I hired some great caregivers. I still keep in touch with many of them. They were extremely helpful, but they were busy.
yeah,
Uh, they like I would have loved to have had what you had, one person who helped me the entire time I was there. But I don't think any of them would have committed to a schedule like that. Was your caregiver a student? No.
No, he was
Okay.
at the time a single dude with a dog,
Got it.
right?
Got it. Yeah, and that makes a difference too. You know, they had classes, they had other obligations, things of that nature. So all of
Girls
the
or boys, whatever, like whatever you're into, like they had relationships to start forming. Oh man,
right, exactly. Had to deal with all of the college drama associated with that. But I went with the strength in numbers approach, and it worked fairly well for me. I didn't have too many issues, but like you were saying, how when you started at Arizona State, your dad stayed with you for the first 3 or 4 days. My parents did the exact same thing. They had a hotel room near the campus
yeah,
and they stayed down there for the first like 3, 4, might have been even like 5 days before classes started, just to get me acclimated to living on my own. Because honestly, that was the first time I had been away from them longer than like a few days, I think.
yeah,
It's a big shock at the beginning, and I think the biggest thing is learning how to manage people and manage personalities, manage schedules. And obviously, we have very different experiences there. I know you said you had the one aide, but that was something that I had to deal with pretty constantly. Was people, their schedules would change, they might not
yeah.
be available. It's just like a high turnover type of thing, or at least it can be. So how did you go about learning how to like manage your caregiver, and like the expectations, and forming a good relationship with them?
I don't even, man, you're so weird at 17, right? Like you don't even know yourself at 17. And so to be able to manage somebody else at that age is a challenge, right? And before I go on, I want to clarify that this was a time like, so for those of you who are watching this and don't have a disability or don't know anybody except for me or Kevin, a lot of us use what we colloquially call Hoyer lifts, even though Hoyer is a brand name. A patient lift to get me in and out of my chair. Kevin, you probably don't use one because you can stand and walk around, right? So I need one because like my little stubby little legs don't really do much other than stand still. And so I never had one growing up because my parents would just pick me up and throw me around, right? And so when I went to college, I still didn't have one. And so this guy who helped me would just pick my fat behind up out of the chair and throw me around, right? And so I was fortunate in that regard because not everybody's strong enough to do that, especially back then when I was a little bit more portly, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so I needed that, right? And being able to explain to him how to pick me up and how to lift me and do all these other things. I had to actually start figuring out new ways to do the things I had always done because people were getting hurt. People were getting hurt. Like I had friends, so my caregiver wouldn't put me to bed at night because like when you're in college, you don't want to go to bed at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. because the caregiver's got to go home and go to bed too, right? But I didn't want to go to bed at 9. So my friends who I had met my fall semester, my freshman year, at some point were like, yeah, don't worry about going to bed. We'll help you out, no worries. So every night they would come over and put me to bed. I was hurting people after a while, hurting because like I love pizza, right? And so people were getting hurt. They would call it pulling a tone, right?
Oh, that's out.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Right, it was awful.
Uh,
People were getting hurt. Like I had an old friend, old roommate of mine, had herniated his back picking me up.
oh god.
He's still got a bad back now. He's my age, so he's like 50 now. He's probably in a wheelchair now, and so yeah, it's so I had to learn new ways to do things, right? And it was a process that lasted years. I'm still refining the way I do things now. And so like however being on campus was great, right? The challenge though, like you, was what happens when you leave campus, right? What happens when you leave campus? And so for me, I had found some friends and we decided to move into an apartment together. Now, luckily, I got lucky. There was a guy that I knew who lived off campus who was moving out and getting a home. He's buying a home, and he was like, "Hey, I'm leaving this apartment. Do you want it? It's fully accessible. It's got a roll-in shower and a ramp to get into the apartment." I was like, "Hell yeah, I do."
Yeah.
So I, along with two friends, the guy who herniated his back, moved into this 3-bedroom apartment together. And that's how I transitioned from living on campus to off campus.
Okay.
There you go.
Were
That's
you
my story. That's it.
were you a student still, or were you graduated?
Oh, I was still a student for like another year or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Wait.
then
Yeah.
that just kind of, continued on after you graduated.
Yeah. Yeah. And I lived in
Yeah.
that apartment for like another 2 years, 3 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this regard, I had a very different experience. So about, let's see, 11 years ago now, crazy to think about, I graduated from Illinois State. And
A young man.
I went back home at that time
Mhm.
to live with my parents. I didn't really have much money saved up. I was receiving Social Security at the time.
Mhm.
I didn't really have a job in college. So I needed to, work and save money before I could even think about moving out.
Mhm.
So I ended up moving home for a bit, living with them, went back to them as my caregivers, which I will say was, an interesting transition. It's definitely interesting when you go from caregivers who are paid to help you to caregivers that are family members, because you get used to, okay, they're employees, they're here to help, and family members are definitely helpful, but they're family members. Like at a certain point, they may hesitate a little. They
Tell you to
may,
shut the hell up. And this
yeah,
is how it's getting
exactly,
done. Right.
exactly. They may tell you to shut the hell up.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a certain
so
level, there's a different level of intimacy when you're dealing with family members versus somebody who's paid to be there.
yes, exactly. So that transition was definitely interesting. I worked for a number of years, and then eventually I moved into an apartment fairly close by, about 15 minutes from where my parents lived at the time. And at that point, I moved in with a roommate. It was a friend from high school. And I didn't realize how much of a difference that was going to be. That was my first time living in a legitimate apartment,
Mhm.
kitchen, your own bathroom, all that stuff. And it definitely took a little while to get used to it. I would say that the biggest thing for me to get used to was figuring out how to like properly grocery shop for myself. And I know that
Mm.
sounds, to a lot of people listening to this, I'm sure they're gonna be like, wow, that's such an easy thing to do.
No,
And like,
there are grown ass adults out there that still don't know how.
yeah,
I go to the grocery. I see your shopping carts, people. I see
yeah,
your shopping carts. You do not know how to go grocery shopping.
it's hard, and I'd obviously been to a grocery store, but I had never, done grocery shopping where it's like, okay, you're getting what you need for the week, you're budgeting also the amount of food, because I don't know about you, but it is tough buying groceries for one person.
Yeah,
I
yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, like you definitely have to use your freezer, make sure things don't go bad. That was probably my biggest struggle for the first like year or two. I lived on my own, was learning how to buy enough food so that I had enough to get by for the week, but not too much that it didn't go bad before I
Right.
could have the
Yeah.
chance to
Oh,
eat it.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
My first experience with the grocery stores was actually on campus. So side story. So we were talking about the cafeterias, right? And there were these two ladies at the cafeteria. I mean, this was like 30 years ago, so they're probably no longer alive at this point. Rest in peace, Marilyn and Nahid, both of them. Wonderful ladies. So Marilyn was this little sweet little lady at the cafeteria who loved helping me every day when I went to the cafeteria. And then like when she wasn't there, Nahid, this other lady, she was awesome. I loved her too. She was great. They would both help me. And then one day the suits told both of them that they could no longer help me. right? They could no longer help me. And I had a caregiver at this point, but I didn't want to go to the cafeteria with my caregiver because it's like going to the school dance with your parents, right? Like you wanted to be able to like say shit in the cafeteria without worrying about, you know, this adult over here sitting right next to you, even though I didn't really care so much when Marilyn and Nahib were around. I don't know why. Anyway, so I didn't want to go to the cafeteria with my caregiver. And so I was like, I gotta eat still. Let me go to the grocery store. I was buying like white Wonder Bread and bologna and low fat mayonnaise. Don't ever, do not ever buy low fat mayonnaise. It's disgusting.
Oh my
Right.
God.
And that's what I subsisted off of that for like weeks until my body was like, you need to stop doing this yesterday, please. Yeah, you want to talk about constipated? It was oh man. And don't come into my room after I had to go to the bathroom for at least 2 hours because it just smelled like a slaughterhouse in there. It was
Oh my
awful.
God.
It was awful. And so it was tough. I had to learn, like you, I was a horrible grocery shopper. Horrible grocery shopper. I'm much better now, by the way.
Yes, same.
Yeah, it was terrible. Terrible.
I remember when I first started grocery shopping for myself, like I was so used to seeing the amount of groceries for like at least 3 to
Yeah.
5 people. So like I was like, okay, like I got to get all this food, you know? And then I started going through it and I was like, oh my God, like I'm never gonna eat this,
Yeah.
all of this. Like there's no way. You know, I'm one single person. I think I had to give some of it away. I'm embarrassed to admit about how much food I had to throw out at the
Look,
beginning.
you need to be like my mom is for any Koreans out there, you know, your mom has about 5 deep freezers of stuff that she'll never eat. You know this. I'm looking at
Yeah.
all you Koreans out there. You know the truth. You needed a deep freezer, Kevin. You need one now, probably.
Yeah, I probably do. Well, I don't have the room for that, but maybe someday.
Ah, man. So yeah, it's challenging, right? Like budgeting for yourself, eating for yourself. But I had roommates though, right? And then my one roommate decided he wanted to go get married to somebody. They got divorced 2 years later. So that was a mistake. But anyway, um,
Oops.
oops. And so instead of getting another place, what did I do? I went back to school again. 'Cause I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. So, side story, I graduated from ASU with a social work degree. Didn't go into social work, surprise. And I went back to school to do broadcast journalism and got into radio. And I was like, I'm going back to school. I'm going to go live on campus again because it's just easier for me to do it that way. If I'm going to school, I might as well just live on campus. So I'm like a 25-year-old ass man on campus with a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds, right? What was I thinking? I don't know. I wasn't even the cool old guy. I was just like this weird dude that was back on campus again. But I was back on campus and like I didn't have a meal plan though this time because I realized the racket that is meal plans on campus because I discovered that grocery shopping was much cheaper. So I got a little mini fridge. I had a little like slow cooker in my room, and so I would like make stuff in my room and eat. I don't know how I survived, but I did. Yeah, and so I was back on campus again for a couple of years.
Yeah, so I didn't never went back to school, but my original go around in undergrad, I did the victory lap, the 5-year plan.
Yeah.
And I lived in the dorms all 5 of those years.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, it was fine because obviously I was a freshman, you know, and Illinois State has a policy where freshmen and sophomores have to live on campus. So it was fine the first couple of years. The last couple of years, it was getting a little ridiculous where I'm like 22, 23, and
Yeah.
like, you know, dealing with these 18, 19-year-old freshmen who are just, you know, being dumb like freshmen are. It was great though because my RAs that I had were always pretty cool. They would come to me at the beginning of the year and be like, you know, hey, I'm so and so. These are the rules of the floor. I'm not expecting you to attend any meetings. Like, you know, I'll find you as I need you.
Yeah.
Basically, they understood. But you're right. It is so much easier living in a dorm because you know, like the dining services are provided. If something goes wrong in your dorm room, they have maintenance on staff.
Right.
You know, all of those services that are built in that you don't really get living in an apartment.
Yeah.
I mean, some places I think have things like that, but those are very expensive, typically out of, I mean, I know it'd be out of my budget.
It's still out of my budget. Are you kidding
Yeah,
me? Or geez. And
yeah,
another cool thing is like when you live on campus and you need something, it's guaranteed that somebody in the building is up almost 24 hours a day, right? Somebody's awake, right? And so like you're never really left alone. I remember, leaving campus and having to find my own apartment for the first time. Now that shit was scary for me because like I had been surrounded by people the entire time. I didn't have, my friends necessarily to put me in bed anymore. A lot of them had moved away, graduated college, gone elsewhere. And so when I found my first apartment, I I lucked out again. It was, this was like early 2000s. This place actually had an apartment built with a roll-in shower in it.
wow,
Yeah, telling
wow,
me, right.
yeah, that's like an endangered species.
Man, let me tell you. And it was a relatively new complex when I moved in, and it was nice. And I lived there for like 2 years. However, I was living by myself at that, like truly by myself at that point. It's the first time I had ever moved into a place of my own by myself. And I lived there for like 2 years. And it was scary at first, man. Like this was, I mean technology is great now, right? And what I'm getting to is on my current apartment, I have a Bluetooth enabled wireless deadbolt lock that I can lock and unlock with my mobile device.
Me
In
too.
2001 or 2 or whenever that was, none of that stuff existed. Bluetooth was barely a thing at that point, right? And so how would I solve that problem? In my old apartment, I had like a little lock box that I just kept outside that caregivers could use to get in the mornings if my roommates weren't around for whatever reason. At this place, I didn't have that. I didn't have a little lockbox because it just like I just didn't have one, and so I would just leave my door unlocked every single night. And thankfully, nothing bad ever happened. However, every once in a while, because this building was full of college students, some drunk college student would walk into my apartment thinking they were going somewhere else, and I'd wake up and hear somebody walk in, realize it wasn't their apartment, and walk back out.
Oh my God.
It happened multiple times. And then there was one time my friend, who will remain nameless to protect the not so innocent, I was sleeping and I had gone to the bar that night or whatever, so I was pretty like passed out at that point. I woke up, it's like 2 a.m, and I wake up, my light is on, and he's staring me in the face. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing? Wake up!" It's just stuff like that you find that happens to you when you're living on your own. And again, I didn't lock my door because what if there was an emergency and somebody needed to get in, right?
Right.
I didn't have a Bluetooth enabled deadbolt to let people in my place, so I just left my door unlocked always.
So wait, why was your friend in your room?
I don't know. I don't know. He was coming home from something and just decided he wanted to stop by and say hello, I guess.
Just decided, well, I'm just gonna
know.
go in and scare the living
and
crap
he's
out
here,
of him.
and he's here. I might as well go inside.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that brings up a good point though. Assistive technology or even, just technology in general has made living independently so much easier. I didn't move out until I can't speak. I didn't move out until the last few years. And I think about it all the time, how much easier it is because I've personally outfitted my apartment with smart home
Oh
devices,
yeah, oh yeah,
such as that lock that you were discussing
oh
earlier.
yeah,
But also like I have smart bulbs, smart switches,
yeah.
thermostat, smart plugs, all of that stuff has made it so much easier. Cause yeah, I have the same issue that I've never been able to manipulate a key in a regular lock. Um, so I remember, back in the day thinking like, wow, whenever I move out, like, how am I going to do this?
How am I gonna do this?
How am I going to unlock a door?
Yeah,
And I remember people saying like, oh, well, you'll just, call someone in the building to have them come do it. I'm like, well,
no,
I'm not doing that all the time. That sounds terrible. But honestly, the technology has really made it so much easier for people like us to live independently. You know, people look at it and they're like, oh, well, you know, controlling your lights and everything with your voice is a nice thing to have. But for us, it's one of those things that is truly essential. I mean, yeah.
It's huge. Look at this. Okay, Google, turn off the studio. Watch this. Here we go. Look at this. Come on. Wait, did she hear me? No. Google went out for lunch. Okay, Google, turn off the studio. See, Google went out to lunch. Oh yeah, look at that.
There we go.
Okay, Google, turn on the studio. Come on, this is great. I look better in the dark. Wow, look at that. That's amazing. I might stay.
There we go. Add some mystery.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna stay like this for the rest of the episode.
Okay.
I like this.
There we go.
There we go. All right, nice.
It's Tony in the dark.
Yeah, it is. It's. Hello, ladies. So it is. It's amazing. Assistive technology has changed things for the better. The one thing that has not changed for the better overall is caregivers, right? Caregivers, and it's not the caregivers themselves. Sometimes it is. Usually not, though. Caregivers don't get paid enough, and so the one challenge that I've found over time is just keeping caregivers, especially when you live alone, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you live alone, and when you leave the comfort and the safety zone of a college campus, you are now thrust into the aforementioned fiery hellscape of the real world, where people have to pay bills, they have families to take care of, and they have other jobs sometimes because caregivers don't get paid enough, right? And so man, that part was always the challenge. And when I was younger, I was definitely fortunate to have some really good friends who would come by and help me get to bed at night. And I had very stable and reliable caregivers for numerous years. But during those times when I didn't have that, man, was it challenging.
Yeah, it really can be. You know, finding people who are reliable and available and able to help for a long period of time, it's tough. And I feel like it only gets tougher as we move forward here.
It does.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's schedules are just busier these days, and I feel like that has made it significantly harder. And I think people don't always realize that, you know, finding caregivers and scheduling them and keeping them, I mean, it is a full-time responsibility. Making sure that they know when they're working, making sure they're getting paid on time, and making sure they're happy. And part of that is, you know, getting them the things that they need in order to be successful. You know, luckily I've never injured a friend or a caregiver or anything.
I have herniated many discs.
Yeah, luckily I don't think I've ever injured anyone that badly. If I have, I do apologize. But getting them, you know, from everything from an air fryer to latex gloves to, you know, wipes to whatever, just so that they can be successful in helping me in my day to day.
You have an air fryer? You bought an air fryer for your caregivers?
Well, I bought one for them to use while they're here. Yeah, you don't have an air fryer?
No, I don't have an air. I'm an old man. I got a cast iron skillet with 4 inches of oil in it. That's how I roll, baby.
Oh wow, no, dude, you got air fryers are the greatest invention, in my opinion. They're awesome.
I mean, it's fine. You know, my dad cooked a steak in an air fryer not too long ago, and it came out pretty good. I will say. Okay, so maybe I'll get one.
Don't knock it till you try it. It's great for warming stuff up too.
I'll put it on my Amazon wish list. So anybody out there who wants to go on my wish list and buy it for me, then yeah, feel free to do so. Thank you.
Perfect. So my next question here: have you ever dealt with a caregiver who maybe wasn't willing to do like a certain task, like they weren't willing to take you somewhere, or they weren't willing to, you know, empty the dishwasher or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. I've had a few of those. I don't take them with me when I run my errands, though. I actually go out by myself because people slow me down, right? Or I slow them down, right? So I do all my errands pretty much like solo, and I'll just have people at the respective establishments help me out, and then I just carry everything home on my chair because I'm a boss, right? Wow. And so but yeah, I mean, I've had a couple caregivers here and there like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
you know, and it's usually something, you know, that I think is a fairly reasonable request, right? I don't ask people to do anything crazy.
Right, of course.
Like repaint my walls or anything wild. But I've had some people are like, no, that's not my responsibility. I'm not doing that. I'm like, okay, well, it's been nice knowing you. Goodbye. See ya.
Yeah, that's the thing is like I feel like people don't realize that's like a very easy way to lose a caregiving job is if it's something reasonable like emptying a dishwasher or or some sweeping or something like that. It's definitely an easy way for to justify someone moving on from them, I would
Yeah.
say. And I think that's a big difference hiring caregivers, post college as opposed to during college. During college, everyone's a college student. Everyone's kind of they need money. They're hungry for experience. In the real world or post college, whatever you want to call it, you have people taking the job for a variety of different reasons.
Survival.
Right. They need a second job because they're going through something personally, or maybe they just need a second job because they need the money, or what have you. I'm in a number of different reasons, and you still get your students occasionally too. So I feel like managing that is more challenging. Managing that it's not just college students that you're dealing with. It's, quote unquote, like real world people who have lives, who have, spouses, kids, all of that, other responsibilities, and making sure that they're able to make it as needed.
Yeah, for sure. I'm turning these lights back on. It's like it's okay, Google, turn on the studio. Let's see, does it come back on? Oh yeah, there you go. Look at that. What a time to be alive. I'm usually not in here in the dark, and so it's kind of messing me up right now. What a time to be alive with this assistive technology thing. Thank you, Christopher and Dana Reeves Foundation, for the Google Home that you supplied to me like 4 or 5 years ago. That was a plug for them. They do amazing work.
They do amazing work.
I don't have a spinal cord injury. They still do amazing work, though.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not a Google Home person. I'm more of an Alexa person.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Get out of here with that. I don't care.
Hey, gotta rep my voice assistant, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
So when you lived, independently out of college for the first time, like what would you say the first week alone was like if you had to describe it?
I thought I was gonna get robbed, right? Or maybe a fire breaks out, or I have a heart attack in bed, and who's gonna save me, right? I mean, this was my first week of living alone. Basically, yeah, it was basically a tornado of anxiety for 7 days. So yeah, I'm good now though. This was like 20 something years ago, so I lived.
You made it.
I made it. Yay. Yeah, it was good. I mean, once I realized that I was not going to die in my sleep alone, then I was like, okay, I'll be all right. I'm gonna make it.
I live in a condo building, and I just remember that first week, like every noise that I heard, I was like, what was, just on edge.
Yeah. The boogeyman's coming to get you.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, what's about to happen? Yeah, it was definitely a little terrifying. It got a little easier once I had a roommate, for sure. But it was different because when I was in college, did you have a roommate when you lived in the dorms?
No, I man, solo room the whole time I was there. Amazing. Solo bathroom though. I never shared a bathroom. I never shared a room. It was awesome.
You never shared a bathroom?
No.
Wow, that's nice.
No, ASU for the win. Go Devils.
Yeah, I'm pretty jealous of that. I had what was called a super singles. So it was a double. It had 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 dressers, all that. But I didn't have a roommate. So I had the room all to myself. And then it was a shared bathroom. And they had like what I like to call it the deluxe stall at the end.
Oh, yeah.
It was basically an accessible stall with a toilet and a shower, all encompassing.
What?
Yeah.
Nice.
So you could just like stand up from the toilet, walk into the shower.
You can walk to the shower, fancy pants.
Sorry, I apologize. Sorry, I could walk to the shower. And yeah, just do everything like in there. So it was
Nice.
nice. The problem was because it was a shared bathroom. Oh God, people would always be using it
Of course.
to take a shit.
Yeah, of
Always.
course, of course, of
Yeah.
course. And people are filthy animals. So you had the skid marks all over the place. It was all, I'm sure it was terrible. And people don't know how
Oh,
to flush because they were raised by animals.
or they would puke all over the toilet because this was in
Uh,
college.
did the shower hose at least reach the toilet so you could just spray it off?
Yeah, it was close enough.
All right.
You
All
could
right.
make it work.
God, people raise your kids right or something. I don't God. Whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I live alone now. I'm not in school anymore, so I live in an apartment, in a grown ass apartment or something. And pay bills. Don't ever leave college, kids. If you go to college, don't ever leave because sometimes. No, I take that back. College kind of sucks compared to like what you can do once you're out of college. I
Mm.
lied. Don't do that. Anyway, so whatever.
And I would say another important part of living independently is transportation. Me personally, I have a van with a hydraulic wheelchair lift that unfortunately I cannot drive. Someone else has to drive it. But that's how I some of the time get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
It varies. You know, sometimes it's that, sometimes it's getting in someone else's car, sometimes it's a train, which I happen to live nearby as well. Tony, how do you go about getting around for our listeners here?
When I was in school, I didn't really need to go anywhere far off campus. I could just easily roll there. And every once in a while, I would take the bus to go places. Now that I live far away from campus and I've far removed myself from the ivory towers of academia, I use the train and the bus to get wherever I need. Even though sometimes we have a service here in Phoenix called Ride Choice, and it's accessible cabs available 24 hours a day. So if I need to go somewhere else, like I had to go to the airport at 3 a.m. like 2 weeks ago, I just called the cab and they took me to the airport, no problem.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
nice.
wish that was more of a. So we have paratransit services
Mhm.
out here. I'm in the suburbs of Chicago, so we have paratransit services out here. Unfortunately, you can't really get a wheelchair accessible taxi or
Mhm.
an Uber out here because we're not close enough to Chicago. So that definitely plays a role in how I get somewhere. Usually if I'm like trying to go into Chicago, that's when I'll take the train that I live right by down the street here. Um, but it is, something that I think a lot of people don't always think about is America is a very car dependent country. So if you can't drive necessarily, it can be pretty challenging just to run errands, um, just to live life. Would you agree with that in your experience?
Yeah, I guess it depends on where you live, though. Honestly,
Yeah,
like
I mean some areas are better connected than others for sure.
I live in the city, so I can just roll pretty much to wherever I need. There's a grocery store, a Target, a Walmart, a movie theater, a Ace Hardware, all those things, all within like a mile and a half of my apartment, right? And so I can just roll my happy behind over there and get what I need, no problem. If you live out in the sticks, then yeah, it's gonna be a lot harder for sure.
Yeah.
I did for a while live out in the sticks when I was living in Minnesota, and that it was challenging for sure because, like you said, we are car dependent in this country. So I don't know. There are wonderful aspects of living independently, even if you have a disability. Although there are some added challenges, right? And we've talked about them today. We've talked about them today.
Yes.
Yeah,
We talked about many of them today.
we have talked about many. Not all of them though. There's so many challenges out there. Like what would happen if the power goes out and my door opener now doesn't work?
Yeah, or what if your power goes out and you're sitting in your recliner chair that stands you up and it doesn't have a battery backup? Yeah, these are things that we absolutely have to think about. I am surprised that my chair doesn't have a battery backup. I think that was an overlooked feature.
Come on, lazy boy, or whoever made the chair. Tempur-Pedic.
Bob's
Bob.
Discount Furniture.
Okay, Robert, get your act together and make some chairs with some battery backups, please.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But no, what would you say if you had to do it all over again? Live independently. What's one thing that you would change? or do differently?
Not live in the sticks. I say it all the time. I did it, and I'm glad I did it, and I don't want to take any of it back. I would never want to take it back. I will never do that again, though. It
So when
would
you say the sticks, like where was it
like
exactly?
like well, so I lived in a small town in Minnesota of about 5,000 people. Right, it was like a 20-minute car ride to the nearest train station.
Oh wow.
There was there wasn't even a Walmart in the town that I lived in. I had to go to the next town over to go to the Walmart, which
Oh my
was like
God.
right near the train station, like 15-20 minutes away. Right, there's one grocery store in the town that I lived in. I think it's closed down now. I don't even know. Yeah, it's just like tiny little villages like that are not built for people with physical disabilities. They're not. And even the next town over wasn't like, it's not 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 for me. So I have to live at least within the periphery of a major city, because I don't live with family. I don't have a family that can live with me and help me out and do all these things necessarily.
Right.
I need to be in a place where people are. And if I live out in the middle of nowhere, it's because I'm about to die. So
There we go. Yeah, but that's something I've noticed too, is that I've never lived in a very rural area. Even my college town, while it is in central Illinois, it's pretty built up. It's like pretty similar to a suburb, I would say. It's just like not attached to Chicago.
yeah.
Um, but I would say that something that I've noticed whenever I've looked at different cities or wherever I may potentially live in the future, I agree with you, it does need to be within the periphery of a major city, because we're so reliant on like those public transportation networks. If there's nothing there, then it's going to be pretty hard to get around. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
keeping that in mind for sure is important. Living in those more populated areas, I would say one of the things that I would do over, if I were to do it over again, is I think I would have started the process of transitioning out of my parents' care a little bit earlier.
Mm.
Because, and I'm sure it was the same for you, it was kind of like a clean break of, okay, I'm out of high school, I'm in college, and now caregivers are helping me.
Yeah.
I think it would have been beneficial for my parents to bring, a caregiver or multiple caregivers, whatever it ended up being, starting like freshman year of high school, and then gradually increase it as I moved along. They come in like maybe like one night a week at
Yeah.
first, and then it's like 2 nights a week, and then maybe they do some mornings, and then like by the time I graduated, they would have been doing like most of my care at least during the week.
Right.
And I think that would have really made the transition a little bit easier. Because I mean, when I hired my first caregivers going into Illinois State, I had never had a job, and I had never even interviewed for a job
Yeah.
at that point. And then it's like, okay, go hire your own team. And I'm like, okay, well, I have no idea what I'm doing.
I don't know. I kind of like it that way, because in the situation that you described, it's a very controlled environment, right? Like your
Right.
parents are still around. They're probably going to be the ones explaining what's going on, or they're there to kind of help clean it up if things get a little messy and things aren't quite working out right. They're there to bail you out, right? Whereas you
Yeah.
doing it the way you did it, me doing it the way I did it, there's no safety net, right? Like you just got to figure it out, right?
That is true. No,
Y-
that is true. That's a
y-
good point.
and sometimes you just gotta just jump in there and do it, and so like I understand what you're saying, and there's definitely relevance to that. I'm kind of glad I did it the way I did it, though. And to be fair to your parents, like, how do you even really plan for that, though,
No, of
right?
course. I
Like,
mean, hindsight is 2020.
yeah.
And I've told them this plan too, and yeah, we have the benefit of hindsight. I just think that it would have been, instead of like most high school students getting a job, I wish that I had had some training on how to manage people
Yeah, for sure.
and how to run it all. That at least would have made it a little bit easier. I think there would have been less speed bumps along the way, at least once I got into college.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I totally get it. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It wasn't easy, right? Like
Oh no.
I said some things that should not have been said over the years for sure, right? I mean, eh,
I mean, at the end of the day, caregiving is a job, and
yeah.
jobs, you're going to have people who don't work out. You're going to have people that you have to fire. You're going to have people that just choose to move on for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I had a caregiver quit that, I thought was really good. I remember I was like, I was 18, 19 years old, much younger. And I just remember just being like devastated, like, oh, wow, how am I going to do this, without them, And then you realize that, people move on all the time. People switch jobs every single day. And you just kind of keep figuring it out one day at a time. And you just keep building upon that until you get where you need to be.
Damn right. Good job. Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
all right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that is going to do it for this episode. This has certainly been a great discussion about how to live independently. We want to make sure that we get you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram as well at TLWA Podcast. We've certainly enjoyed being here with you all for this episode, and make sure to check out episode 5, our next episode, which will be the Caregiver Chronicles. A very exciting episode.
I've been waiting for this episode.
Yes, I know Tony and I are both looking forward to this. We are going to be going through our most interesting caregiver stories. Should be a very entertaining hour, that's for sure.
Yes.
I know I have some good ones. I'm
there
sure
are some
you do as well.
Interesting damn people out there, let me tell you.
There are some interesting people out there, and I feel like we see it all.
Oh man.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to that episode.
Oh yeah.
So don't miss that. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, this has been episode 4 of the Long Way Around podcast. Thanks so much. We'll see you all next time.